Greetings, friends. David J. Coon with Qigong Awareness, the author of Qigong for Beginners, Your Path to Greater Health and Vitality. Check that book out at lulu.com. You'll see the link down below. In this episode, number 17, I don't have enough fingers to do 17 exactly, but so to speak, in one shot at least. Anyway, episode number 17, I'm going to knock out one more for you guys this evening. Now you caught me. This is what I do on Friday nights. It's not the only time I put forth these videos, but it is a Friday night. This is what I do for fun. In this particular episode, I want to continue on the idea of awakening consciousness, awakening energy, the idea of healing, the idea of you transforming yourself, and you have to know that this is going to include the relationship to your body, which means healing the physical body. It's also going to relate to your relationships with mother, with father, with sister, with brother, with lover, with ex-lover, with future lover, okay? It's going to include all of that. Because as I've mentioned in previous episodes, and in other trainings, if you've trained with me before, you are like the sun in your world. Things are actually revolving around you. And not just things, but people. And not just people, but events. And they're revolving around you. If you didn't know already, and if you do, it's a great reminder. The universe is a mirror. It mirrors back to you whatever is going on inside of you. So deep within you lives the kingdom of heaven. We'll just say it like that. It's kind of under the surface. But just under the surface lives all of this dirt, soot, resistance, lower vibrational energies, etc. And that's what you see in this world. That's what you see being mirrored back to you. So, for example, if you are struggling in the lower chakra centers, okay? If you're struggling in the lower chakra centers with your survival and your fear and instinct and so on, and your adrenaline rushes, if you're surviving with your addictions to food, drugs, sex, alcohol, relationships, which is one of the biggest ones. Solar plexus, struggling with competition and personal power and things of that nature. If you're struggling in these lower centers, okay, then you are causing yourself pain because that's where pain comes from. That's also where dis-ease comes from. That's also, if that is where you're meeting your mates, your partners, because when we come together as partners in whatever capacity, and it could be husband-wife type thing or a wife-wife type thing or a boss, whatever the case may be, like in a workplace, you're joining other people from one chakra to another chakra. Whoa. Take a time out to think about that for a minute. It's very important. If you don't know about that kind of stuff, you should stop and think about it. Take a breath in. What chakra center am I meeting my partners in? What chakra center am I meeting my boss in? Do I feel like a victim in my relationship with my boss? If you do feel like a victim, guess what? You're in the second chakra. You might be a little bit in a third also. Okay, you're playing games of power and victimization, and sometimes you might throw a few pot shots at the boss, you know, in whatever capacity, even if it's just in the background. Anyway, these are some ideas. So as you change yourself and as you begin to develop yourself and harness your energy, okay, which is what the Qigong practices are all about, harness your energy. Martial arts, same thing. Harness your energy. Martial art has a downfall in general that Qigong doesn't have. Martial art can get you into trouble with some not so great karma. In other words, if you go beat somebody up, okay, it's not really good for your karma. If I go beat somebody up, even if it's to win a tournament, and I've done that kind of thing before, not that I've ever really beat anybody up bad, but in other words, I would go to competitions and stuff. And when you do that, it closes your heart, your own heart. So Jesus had a teaching. He said, as you give, so shall you receive. So I found it very interesting that when I would go into, when I was around 25 and I started to have this series of awakenings and so on, of energy and consciousness and so on, and perception change, I remember going in and going to fight full contact karate. And I remember just realizing how afraid I was and how I was trying to override that with adrenaline. And all of a sudden, one day I just dropped it. I mean, it happened with some of these perception changes, but I literally dropped it. And that was very interesting because I no longer had fear of my opponent in the ring, which was, again, interesting because I was so terrified before. And now all of a sudden I went in there and I was like fearless. Like I just didn't have any fear of being beaten because I didn't have any anger or angst toward the other individual. Like I didn't want to kill him, so to speak, right? I didn't want to beat him up. I didn't want to maim him. So all of a sudden I didn't have any fear. And it was very interesting to go into the ring with other people who were afraid, and I wasn't feeling that fear. And it was interesting to see how that changed the dynamic for me. That ended up leading me out of karate, full contact karate, into Aikido practices, which is the Japanese art of Aikido is about a practice of, it means love and harmony. It doesn't feel like love and harmony if you get tossed on your head, but the idea is you never attack. In Aikido, you never attack. You're always responding to someone else's attack. So it's a great metaphor for life, okay? And I got involved in jiu-jitsu, which is the idea of if you pull me, I'm going to push. If you push me, I'm going to pull you. In other words, going with the flow of energy. Now, Qigong, we don't have to worry about any of that karma with other people because we're not bringing harm in any way to someone else. In other words, there's no fight with anyone else, right? And even when we do martial art by ourselves, maybe in the wee hours of the morning like I did for many years, still do, we're doing katas or whatever the thing is, martial art forms and so on, or Qigong forms, or both, okay? You're clearing, you're cleansing, you're purifying your energy. And what energy are we purifying? What are we clearing? We're clearing, that's upside down. We're clearing root, we're clearing navel center, we're clearing solar plexus. Over time, you can begin to open the heart. As I've mentioned in previous videos and other trainings that I teach, some schools will just jump in and start you with the third eye, and they just sit and do meditation, and they just try and train you to bring your mind here and forget everything else and sit on a cushion. And for some people that works. I've done many seminars, workshops, trainings, retreats like that, and I didn't do that in the early years because it was like, just didn't even resonate with me. But as I went on, it resonated with me more and more. But working with these lower centers down here has some advantages. I can't get into all of them right now, but one of them is it helps you to heal your body. Not that just sitting in your third eye doesn't, but some people who just sit in their third eye, I'll go back to the story of the Buddhists. The original story of some of the original Buddhists is that they referred to the body as a big skin bag. They really didn't emphasize training it, okay? Until Bodhidharma came along. Bodhidharma was like a student of the Buddha's in some capacity, a follower of the Buddha, and brought Buddhism over to China, and the Chinese government and so forth didn't like him, didn't like his teaching. He retreated to the Shaolin Temple. He found the monks there. They weren't really doing much with their bodies. They're just sitting there focusing on their third eye or maybe even on their crown, and they refer to their bodies as big skin bags. So Bodhidharma was somewhat appalled by that. He was like, I don't understand why you're doing this. You're all going to die way too young to figure out the secrets of enlightenment. You're dying way too young. You're not taking care of the body. And so Bodhidharma is one of the seen by a lot of people as one of the main influencers of what then happened in the Shaolin Temple. So the Shaolin Temple went from being just people sitting there focused on a big skin bag and like trying to leave it, like leave the body and sort of escape to some nirvana, right? And Bodhidharma supposedly left the temple and actually went to a cave for 9 years and came back with some of the original practices of Qigong, which then got further developed and became martial art. And now you see martial art being practiced there as well at the Shaolin Temple. So Qigong going from, seated meditation, still meditation, to movement arts like you would see in a Qigong practice, like a circling hands type practice, to actually an art where, they're clawing the face and mimicking a tiger or something to defend the temple, or coming with a spear. All right, so these practices, at least for me, have been very, very instrumental and very, very important in catharting, let's say, catharsis, in other words, like catharting those lower chakras, purging those centers to awaken the heart. One interesting similarity between myself and what I've heard from Eckart Tolle's story, if you're familiar with the spiritual teacher Eckart Tolle, as I mentioned in the last video that I did, last episode, after I healed my spine, that was when I entered these very intense panic attacks. And for a while, it went on for at least a year. I don't remember exactly how long, but I think at least a year for sure. And I remember reading Eckart Tolle's story, and I remember that before he had what he referred to as his awakening from his ego and his sort of separation from that ego, that chatter mind, that part of our mind that evaluates everything all the time and never ceases to shut up sometimes, and so on, and gives us a hard time. And it's like Santa Claus. It knows everything about you, whether you've been good or bad. It has its own opinions, and it's full of judgment. Okay, so anyway, he awakens from that. He clears his mind, and apparently the story is that he was on a park bench for like a year or something, like slept on a park bench. I read something like that in Power of Now. Anyway, my point is that there is an unfoldment there, and again, there are different paths to spiritual awakening. Eckart Tolle, without any judgment or anything from about anybody, I'm a big fan of Eckart Tolle on the level that I am. He's doing great things for the planet and so on, and he absolutely has, I believe, a certain degree, however we want to evaluate that, of awakening. Amazing eyes as an energy healer, an amazing auric field that entity has, and I think he's part elf, okay? Half kidding, half serious. Very powerful eyes, very powerful spiritual being behind those eyes. Simultaneously, in Eckart Tolle's current life, it's like he's like more to the Buddhist side in that evaluation, more to the Buddhist side in that, he's probably not going out and exercising very much. He's certainly not doing martial art. He laughs and he giggles. He has an amazing sense of humor. So this also tells us something. It may hint to you something, that there's not just one way on the spiritual path to awakening, and not every path is going to fit for you. In other words, my path is much more physical. It's also very metaphysical, but it's also very physical. And for Eckart Tolle, I don't think he has that element of physical, right? And so for some of you, you may want to go more toward that path, and you work with the sixth, for example, the sixth chakra. Your body may not be in the greatest shape. It doesn't do the greatest things for your body. So again, the Buddhists kind of don't care. In general, the old school Buddhists don't care, because the idea is they're awakening to nirvana. The body's a big skin bag. Who cares? So if that all makes sense, in what I'm teaching, the body is very important. So I know spiritual teachers on the planet who have various conditions within their physical body, and they accept them. And they're very much Buddhist-like in the way that I described that, in that they do not care about the condition. They say it does not bother them. They don't do anything to train themselves out of that condition. For what it's worth, just for perspective, I am not that guy. I transform my spinal disease. I work with my physical body through physical practices of Qigong. And then I also work the seated meditation, the standing meditation, and I also work like many psychics do. I am a medical intuitive. I have many sort of psychic gifts and things that have come to me along the way that have happened in my process. Some of them started as a kid. Some of them happened after I had these series of changes and awakenings and so on. I don't do party tricks. I am a healer. That's my focus. I use my skills for healing, and I don't do it to show off. I do it for the purpose of true, sincere, and authentic healing. And I find that for me, if it wasn't that, if it wasn't true and it wasn't sincere and it wasn't authentic, then I probably couldn't do the trick anyway. Okay. So in the path that I would share with you, it's going to go down the lines of a path like what Bodhidharma brought into the Shaolin Temple. Not what they did in the Shaolin Temple after Bodhidharma left, which is like really hardcore Kung Fu, but somewhere in between. And to me, that's what Qigong is. It's somewhere between like a seated still meditation, and we do have some internal seated still meditations that we do, and then movement, but maybe not as extreme as the Kung Fu arts. Okay, so how does this all come together in this particular session and what we're talking about? This is my opinion and my take, okay? So take it for what it's worth. If you want to heal the physical body, work with the physical body. Work it out, train it, work through your anger, work through your struggles, through prayer, through meditation, through walking, through incantation, through mantra, through breathing practices, through Qigong practices. And look, I'm not giving you the next best thing so that you can do it in a day and then like you're done. If that was the case, I wouldn't have a certification program. If that was the case, I would just do one episode and I'd be done talking to you. I'd write my book, I'd say, here, this is how you do it, and we'd be done, okay? I told you that for me, and everybody's different where they are, but it took me all of those years, 15 was when the real intense suffering started for me. And it took me from 15 to 30 plus years old to where I started to get those panic attacks to start to subside, and I started to enter into sort of new realms of people, places, events. I met one of my top spiritual teachers, masters, two of them, as a matter of fact, somewhere right around that time. I met my soulmate, which, by the way, if I never told you the story, maybe I'll tell you more another time. But I had dreams about my wife. I had images about my wife. I had descriptions about what she looked like, where she might live, all kinds of stuff. So much of it came true. And I met her right around that time. I was about 33 years old when I met my wife. We've been married for 17 years. Many of you know her. She's the president of our company, doctor of Oriental medicine, psychic herself, intuitive herself, quite a phenomenal healer. And she has also studied with some of the same masters that I have studied with, and has some of the same group of, we'll just say, high vibrational friends, many other healers and teachers who are doing some pretty great things out there on the planet. So as you change and as you shift your own energy system, which again, I'm not going to lie to you, it takes work, which is why I say to you, I'm not just here to try and make money off of you. Okay. As I give, so shall I receive. Okay. I work my butt off for what I do so that you guys can have the training that you can, and I can get paid enough to keep going with what I'm doing, and so that I don't have to go work in some 9-to-5 job that I don't want to be in. I do my best to be in practice all day, every day. That's what I do. It's a selfish thing, but it's also a selfless thing. So I do seminars on the weekend. I do these kinds of talks on Friday night. I'm doing private coaching sessions and healing sessions during the week. I'm doing a distance healing program. I'm fielding phone calls and emails. I'm creating content. I'm working on the certification program. I'm answering students' questions in relationship to the certification program, because my belief is that if you go further, I go further. And check this out. We haven't gotten into this yet, but maybe in the next video, awakening your consciousness, okay? Awakening your energy, awakening you in your life, in your relationships, in your backyard, in your own house. That's what it's all about, guys. Because only in doing that can we have greater awakening happening on the planet. So I highly recommend diving in. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode.